Greetings, bays, bows, and boos. I'm Jade Hollow, and welcome to the Locked Tome, where I talk about all things spooky. Sorry I've been so absent for the month of October. I've been actually trying to write spooky things, which means I've had much less time to watch spooky things. But I just watched The Ring 2002 for the first time since it came out. I can neither confirm nor deny the actual age that I watched The Ring because I'd have been around 8 at the time of its release, and upon rewatching it now, it turns out I remembered quite a lot of the plot and specific scenes, so perhaps I didn't rent it from Blockbuster until some years later. As you can imagine, back in the early 2000s in rural Canada and very limited access to the internet, I didn't know The Ring was based on a foreign film. It did a good job of adapting the source material to feel like a North American horror thriller, and I'll get into that comparison in a bit. But, being the cultured woman that I am today, though, I thought it was about time I watched the original too. I'll be referring to the Japanese movie released in 1998 by its transliteration, Ringu, to keep things a little more straight. Depending on how you look at it, I did things out of order. I started with The Ring and went on to Ringu because I still had so many images of The Ring still floating around in my head from my adolescent viewing, and I thought it'd be best to solidify those plot beats than to have them muddy my consumption of the original that I'd be seeing for the very first time. The Ring 2022 held up surprisingly well to my memory and my expectations against it as an early 2000s adaptation. Admittedly, it is a bit of a long movie. It's 2 hours, but the pacing itself is also slow. There's lots of research, traveling, lingering, and ambiance. And I was here for it because the work that they were putting into developing the story gave me faith that my time would not be wasted. The founding premise of the Ring franchise is that of a supernatural chainmail done through the medium of VHS tapes. If you watch the cursed tape, you will receive a call prophesizing that you will die in 7 days. At the end of that week, at the exact moment that you'd consumed the footage, the spirit of a young woman in a white dress and black hair draping her face will manifest. She drags herself through a TV or other device, and she's wet from having pulled herself from a well on screen, and she essentially just scares her victims to death, leaving their faces twisted with horror. The Ring 2022 follows a reporter named Rachel whose niece died from the curse. With some digging around, she finds that the group of her niece's friends all also died at the exact same time, making far too big of a coincidence, no matter how crazy the rumor of a videotape that kills people sounds. Though her niece was considered a matter of heart failure, like completely inexplicable, suspicion didn't rise for the others as the boyfriend's was ruled as suicide, and the other two friends as a car accident. It appears that anyone who has watched the cursed tape up until their death are marked by having their faces distorted in video footage. With that, and a collection of photos that her niece had taken over a weekend, Rachel manages to pinpoint when and where the teenagers must have come in contact with the film. At the cabin, she finds the VHS, watches it, and gets a call herself, afterward suffering the same inexplicable effects of photo distortion. Understandably spooked, Rachel calls up her ex-lover, Noah, who happens to be a video analyst. I quite liked how the movie made both of their jobs make sense and be useful to the plot. They definitely would have crossed paths in their past, given their professions, and both have expertise that aid in unraveling the mystery of the tape and the killer spirit. Noah watches the tape too and says that he'll help her, but even with Rachel's days counting down, they don't kick their research into high gear until Rachel's son Aiden is caught watching the tape too. As it turns out, Noah is also Aiden's father. He and Rachel hooked up when they were younger and unprepared, and only Rachel had taken on the role of mothering their love child. It was really nice to see that Noah cares about Aiden, but doesn't immediately flip his entire identity into regret for having missed all those years of his life. Him and Aiden have a very mature conversation in the car about how he didn't think he would be a good father, and there's no actual bad blood over it, as Noah is probably right. Although he does pick up responsibility and attachment to Rachel and Aiden as the movie progresses, inarguably he probably shouldn't have been Aiden's father that whole time, and nobody's mad about it. Rachel and Noah divide and conquer to solve the mystery. Rachel narrows down the tape's origin location to an island by analyzing images from the cursed footage and conducts interviews with residents of the island, while Noah tracks down medical records from mainland institutions once they know the woman who appeared in the tape's name, Anna Morgan. And subsequently, they learn the name of the girl who haunts the tape, Samara. In this movie, The Ring 2022, the extent of the lore is revealed as follows. After consecutive miscarriages, Anna Morgan, who had wanted a child so desperately, adopted a young girl named Samara. Unfortunately, and unbeknownst to her and her husband, Samara was a child possessing the psychic ability to etch images into things, which tormented those around her, because she was etching some horrible stuff into people's minds. The Morgans tried to isolate Samara in a barn, but as their business failed due to horses killing themselves, Anna hit a point of madness, finally throwing Samara into a well to die. It took 7 days for Samara to die in the well, and during that time, her essence manifested onto a tape elsewhere. Somehow. For the majority of the movie, the story of Samara's death unfolds like a tragedy. Being a mother herself, Rachel pities Samara's fate, appalled that Anna would do something so awful to her child. Rachel and Noah track down the well that Samara drowned in, and Rachel recovers her body. As Rachel's death countdown rolls over and she doesn't die, they think that they've successfully removed the curse by rescuing Samara from such a cold, watery grave. Unfortunately, although Rachel received an exemption, Noah is killed by the spirit of Samara the next day, still in accordance with when he'd watched the tape. It is through the delivery of lines from Aiden, their son, who is more spiritually attuned, that Samara's curse is recontextualized. She was not a victim, but the villain all along, a manifestation of evil, and she would not stop just because Rachel had lovingly exhumed her body. If anything, she'd made Samara more powerful by letting her out of the well. Rachel figures out that the one thing she'd done which no one else ever had was that she made a copy of the tape, which is the one that Aiden watched. To save her son, Rachel convinces Aiden to make a copy of the tape too, explaining how they'd need to make someone else watch it to pass on the curse, like a chainmail. The movie ends in a very meta way that I'm quite biased towards, of Aiden asking what'll happen to the next person, which is us, as he looks at the camera, the audience who just watched The Ring. I have a real soft spot for movies that follow through so well on execution of concept. The Ring held up surprisingly well to the test of time, and I had no idea what to expect going into Ringu, like how much of the story would change. And as it turns out, not much. It was a very faithful adaptation compared to some others that I've seen. In Ringu, Raiko, a journalist single mother, commits to investigating the death of her niece. She enlists the help of her ex-husband Ryuji upon finding the cursed videotape and being marked herself by photo alterations. They and their son Yoichi all watch the cursed tape in the same order and manner. A key difference in Ringu is that Ryuji is not a video analyst. He's a professor and a psychic. Though they narrow the origins of the lore down to psychic research institutions and ultimately to a well hidden under the cabin that the niece's friend group had all watched it at, Raiko takes more of a back seat in the investigation than Rachel did. Ryuji's psychic connection reveals more information about Sadako's past, which they would have otherwise had to spend gumshoeing through institution records. He just gets flashes from the past instead. P.S. In Ringu, the spirit's name is Sadako, and in the American version, it's Samara. Now, the next big difference between the original Ringu and the remake is the life and death of Sadako. In The Ring 2002, Samara is killed by her adoptive mother, and nothing is known about her birth mother or past aside from a video of her confessing to a doctor that she's sorry, but she will not stop her evil ways. And spoilers for future videos on this, having watched the next American installments of the Ring franchise, I still cannot tell you why Samara ever got released for public adoption, but that's a question for another time. Instead, in Ringu, Sadako is the child of a woman named Shizuko, who was a very powerful psychic herself. Sadako was the product of Shizuko and the ESP researcher Dr. Akuma. It's hard to say how consensual their affair really was, and it remains unknown whether Shizuko and Dr. Akuma are alive in the movie, as the main characters never managed to track them down in Ringu. After killing a spectator that called her mother a fraud at a psychic showcase, Sadako is shown in a flashback running away from the scene and eventually getting pushed into a well by her father, the doctor. There is no adoption plotline, and the biological parents are known, but absent. As happens in both movies, Sadako's body is found in the well by Raiko, Ryuji dies when his time comes anyway, and their son Yoichi must make a copy of the tape and show it to someone else to pass on the curse. And I have to admit, I didn't think this would be the case, but I feel as though the Ring adaptation added a lot to the story, and I, in turn, liked it a bit better than Ringu. This is going to partially be due to the original being the original, and that the adaptation had more time to stew, but that doesn't mean that the answers they added and the execution doesn't deserve the recognition, I think. The process that Rachel and Noah went through, from skepticism to belief, and the ways that they pursued the truth added a lot of believability for me. The fact that they bothered to look at and question the production of the cursed tape, because it has no imprint from having been produced by a device rather than just manifested, and how the VHS players can't read the time code was really interesting. Rachel spends extra time dissecting the footage of the tape, employing means of distorting it for more answers, using connections and equipment available to her because of her and Noah's fields of work, and it's a lot more satisfying to me than Ryuji just having psychic visions that give them some of the answers. And although it's slow, the Ring adaptation adds a lot of atmosphere. Here's a side by side of some of the shots between the two movies. Now, the Ring overdid the green filter, like, not just sometimes, but all the time, but it was suitably gloomy and mysterious to go with the long runtime. Reading the movies individually, based on my subjective enjoyment and not based on each other, Ringu was a 3 out of 5 stars because it was good on the first watch, but I don't think that I'll ever feel compelled to watch it again, really. In the Ring 2002 adaptation, I gave a 4 out of 5 stars because I have a soft spot for the delivery of such a meta concept, and it had a lot more visceral, iconic scenes which had stuck with me ever since I was a preteen. Specifically these scenes. If you know, you know. Let me know in the comments which of the first installment Ring movies you preferred and why. I plan to continue into the franchise, but finding all of the Japanese movies seems like it won't be easy, so any guidance is more than welcome. I hope you're all enjoying spooky season, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.